Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello and welcome to Travel Market Life. I'm your host Ryan Haynes, and in today's show we're going to be talking about adapting hospitality management with Michael Jones, Director of Revenue at Effective Hospitality Management. With 150 years of senior management experience leading prestigious hospitality operations over the last 25 years. During this interview, we're going to be talking about changing behaviours, managing the staffing crisis, adapting to technology, and how distribution strategies are changing, and the utilisation of systems and working with partners.
Travel Market Life.
Hello, Michael. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. So there has been such a change in the last couple of years, and effective hospitality management has really come out of the pandemic and really noticed a change in need in the marketplace. As a consequence of emerging from the pandemic, we'd love to know, how have you adapted the business model for hoteliers and the type of service delivery needed to meet today's demands?
Hi, Ryan. So yes, starting a business in the pandemic, which my colleagues Kevin and John done, was probably a very bold and scary move, but there was a need. We identified during the process for the smaller hotelier that obviously the support, how they adapted during the pandemic, it was very, very difficult, especially with obviously everything that happened, the non-government support for the tourism industry obviously at large. So we identified this, and Kevin and John at the start started to go through this and identified what was needed. Obviously, the biggest thing was staffing, cost control for owners in smaller businesses that don't have the large corporate background, that have all these procurement bases and the revenue management skills, the huge reservations teams. There was a huge need there. For basically all the fundamentals that you would take from a very, very large hotel, you take for granted that you have a head office base that you don't have in a guest house, for instance. Go from a guest house up to a small hotel up to 50 bedrooms. We've identified this going forward. What we've done is we've taken what we've done in large hotels. We've taken the budget process, the forecasting process, and the pricing process, which is obviously one of the most key important parts. And we've scaled that down to be able to adapt and help these smaller businesses. One of the large things was technology. I think especially what I've noticed going into properties that have been privately owned and maybe run for maybe 10 to 15 years by a couple, say, for instance, there's a lot of manual process. And when I say manual, going back, they were using for their booking system, they were using a diary.
Right.
So adapting the change, and then obviously the large one for me out of the pandemic especially has been the technology side.
I mean, it really is a complete rethinking, though, isn't it? As you say, I mean, it's like there's so much need now for businesses of any shape or size to really understand how digital works, how you engage with consumers on that level to be able to bring those booking in, and then also to deliver that digital service, which again, consumers are expecting. But how do you then ensure that you've got the hospitality experience when people arrive on site? And I've seen that there's a lot more of that shift now to really bring in those outsourced specialist advisors like yourselves to be able to support really those main mechanisms, so that at the hotel itself, they can focus on what they do best. And I guess this is where you're really able to bring that best practice from larger hotels and provide a template for the smaller properties to succeed.
Exactly. Then obviously throughout my career, I've always been told the most important thing in a hotel is the guest. yes, the most important, you always get told that, but sometimes, obviously, especially as what we said just prior there, in a smaller hotel, a lot of these processes take up so much time. If they don't have the skill to do these processes and they're having to learn all these processes as they're going along, it's the guest that suffers. So when we go in, we take that process in the background away. So the fundamentals of concentrate on the guest experience is at the forefront. It's right at the front, and then everything in the background is taken care of. What you were saying there about the culture with staff and things like that, it has been difficult. People are used to sitting at a reception desk, handing over a key. They're just used to standing behind the bar, handing over their gin and tonic or their cocktail or their pint of lager. What we've tried to do is when we go in, and obviously John and Kevin's side, they're very, very good at bringing the team together and looking at people's transferable skills. And when I say transferable skills, they're hospitality skills. It's not just a case of, yes, I'm great, I make the best gin and tonic. Yes, but you can also be the best at checking in the guest or taking the guest to the room or explaining about the business. So it's looking at it as an overall. So instead of having these segregated departments, it's like that, oh, I only work in the restaurant, I only work in housekeeping. We brought the teams together and sort of not in a sense cross-trained them. It's educated them to a sense of you actually know how to do it. It's just you've just got this bit in the back of your head. It says, no, this is what I've been employed to do. This is all I do. and then obviously that fixes the guest journey and everything like that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's that need to be able to, as you say, sort of flex the demands throughout the hotel, utilizing your existing staff force, especially when it might be restricted, as we are seeing. Where demand needs at front desk, have the people at other parts of the hotel working there, and then they shift over to the other departments. And as you say, you're working within a small hotel. I guess this also, once they really understand how they can transfer their skills, they become much more empowered and much more involved in how you can make the property a success.
Exactly. So I'll give you an example. So we have a hotel that before the pandemic had 3 receptionists. They would look after reservations, answer the phone, and we work alongside Fusion Group, and we have a reservations centre. So that element of reservation checking, taking payments has been lifted out the hotel, and then your staff on property, instead of having 3 receptionists, you maybe just go down to 1 or have 2 duty managers and then 1 administration person, and they're concentrating on the guest, the concierge side of things. How can they make the guest experience better? So that administration element, which I personally think in a lot of hotels, people get themselves bogged down with when the focus should be on the guest, and making their experience as good as possible, and also then picking up if there is an issue, which, as we know in hotels, there always is an issue, but we don't normally, because we're Highland professionals, we don't probably show there's an issue. Yeah. We just sort of, but always make sure that the guest is happy. And a lot of that it's all come down to technology.
And you've talked to me about some of the ways and those changes by removing that receptionist, the automated check-in, the digital payments, the automated reports. How have the staff been able to adapt to that? And I guess at the same time, isn't that a consumer demand, a demand or expectation from the guest?
I think so. We'll start it. So pandemic started, and I always use this example. My dad's 76. Before the pandemic, he was technophobe, did not like technology. He now, after 2.5 years of a pandemic, has an iPhone and an iPad. And they just booked their flights to Spain to go on holiday, done it on themselves on the iPad. From the hotel side of things, when a member of staff has been doing something for a long time, and they take pride in that, and they take this is what I do. This is what drives the business. When you take that away, there's a lot of change. What we've done is we have taken them on the journey. It's not just, you would think, if, for instance, if you just went into the business and turned around and said, right, you're not doing that anymore, you're not doing this, it would make that member of staff probably not that great, not wanting to work there anymore. So we've taken them on the journey. We've, along the whole stage, showed them the technology, asked their involvement. The reservation centre, for instance, everybody goes to the reservation centre. They spend the day there. They see what the team at the reservation centre do, but they also see what their involvement needs to be, how they need to work. So they're still doing the job that they used to do before. They're just doing it in a slightly different way to match into this type of technology. So instead, now a check-in, I would say 60% of the guests now do online check-in, based on obviously, from what I've seen over probably 8 hotels, maybe 60%. But now the member of staff on property needs to identify who's checked in online, and then just see how they can adapt that other 40% of the guests of how they can check in online. And then the other interesting thing is the age bracket for the person who's doing the online check-in is from 60 years old upwards, which is, to me, I think that's fantastic. I really do think that's great, because everybody's adapted. Everybody roughly has email now. They have an iPad or some form of tablet, or they have a smartphone.
That's absolutely fascinating. And as you say, whilst consumers and guests have moved in that direction, it's about really helping your staff understanding their role and their and how they can be part of that. And one of the other things that you were telling me that has been a big change is how the chefs also engage at some of your properties.
Of course.
Please tell us about what you've been doing there.
I mean, I think it's a case of one team. It is one team. It should never ever be segregated down. The kitchen staff stay in the kitchen. And when we've got Aird's Hotel up in Port Appin, the chef makes a great effort up there to come out. If food needs to get explained, yes, the restaurant manager can explain it. Maybe not me as much, but if I had to do it. But it's a case of having the member of staff front of house having the confidence to go and say to chef, can you come in and explain where you got the scallops, where the oysters came from? And he will do that. He has his clean jacket sitting there in his clean apron, and he'll put it on, and he'll come into the restaurant and talk to the guest, recommend the wine that goes with it. So it's building the team together. And I think that's a really, really important thing, that everybody is one team. Everybody helps each other in a hotel.
And you say is from a smaller hotels, and there is that family environment, and it is almost the heart of a community for a lot of people, and it makes sense to look at it that way. Now, one of the other areas I'd love to talk to you about and learn about is the distribution strategy and the role between your OTAs and how important they are, and the emphasis you put on that from a sales perspective versus your website, because that's a big discussion that's been ongoing. Direct
discussion. and it always has been for years. It's like, we want more direct bookings. Your larger corporations, your Hiltons, your IHG, yes, they have the drive. They have dedicated teams that are able to focus solely on that. Coming down to our smaller properties, so the ones that I work, yes, we would love to have everything direct. I mean, it would just be amazing. But when you have your booking.coms that have such a high budget, I mean, it's a budget that you wouldn't even dream of having yourself. What they spend in 1 week, a hotel probably wouldn't spend in 30 years on online marketing. So there needs to be an element of, so how I look at when I budget, there needs to be an element of how we work with the OTAs, but how we also work with other channels. the good one for me, it depends. Google, do Google Zero now. You can now, so when you go into Google, normally it would be TripAdvisor, it would come up in your sidebar and things like that. Now Google are taking bookings for you, but they're pulling it from the rates from your own booking engine. So that, in a sense, is pushing your direct business. So we've been looking at making sure our Google business pages are up to date, opening times are up to date, all the things that an owner can do, as well as a huge corporation. Looking at keywords, looking at the scary thing, Google Analytics.
as they go to change them to GA4, and that's
GA4,
that's a minefield.
But I've just learned Google Analytics. No, but yeah, it's looking at it. If a lot of independent places do work with places that do their websites, for instance, so we work with these companies, and it's like, okay, can we put a simple thing like on as a heat map on our website? Me saying a heat map to yourself or any of my colleagues, yes, they understand, but then we need to explain that to an owner. It's like that, okay, and the simplest way I see it is we put a sheet across your website, and then it comes out with a colour to see where people are clicking. Mm-hmm. Making sure the booking engine's up to date. I mean, how many clicks does it take to make a booking? I think booking.com, I've got theirs down, I think it's 5 or 6 clicks now to make a booking. That's great.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Yeah, it's so fast.
And I think it's even faster on the app. Lost my train of thought there. Right, yes, so going on to, so we're identifying the information in the background. So the Google business page, anything that we do mailing-wise. Mailing, if you would think, doesn't work. I mean, it's just like, oh, it's a waste of time. We've actually proved it in one of our properties. It does work. The owner does a newsletter to our database, and the uptake in there, I think, was this year. So their financial year finished last month. I think 20% of their bookings came from that newsletter.
And that's phenomenal. How are you utilizing all these different types of systems now, and the role that they're playing? And that's certainly, as come to the final questions here, Michael, we'd love to hear from you about how you assess new technology systems and partners, and the technology that you're looking at next.
So technology we're using at the moment. So over all the properties we use, I think I use a different PMS in every property. 6 of the properties that I have are on one, and then the rest are all separate. The fundamental thing, they all do exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. The big one for me is the distribution from that system. How easy is that distribution? When we load a rate, how far does that rate go, as I would call it? Does it go out to your OTAs? Does it push it to your website? The other one is guest confirmation. So we've got all now set up. So confirmation sent at time of booking, 7 days before the guests arrive, they will get another email. Is it anything else you need? Do you want to book a table for dinner? Then there's a hyperlink in there. They can go in and book their own table for dinner, which then takes the element away from the hotel. And then after they've stayed, I think it's 6 days after, they'll get an email. Is there anything that we could have done better? So there's nothing pushy. Everything, the first 2 are helpful. The last one's feedback. And that's down to system as well. We just put a system into Airs called Hop, Scottish-based company. I have to say, I'll tell the truth here. I've never done the online training. I set up the system, but it's done in a way, if you've worked in a hotel or used another system, it was a very natural flow, where you had to go, how things are worded in the system, how the reports are worded. So even though you'd never worked in hospitality before in your life, you would think of the word that you want, but that's what the report would be called.
So really important for you as part of utilizing new technologies and systems is the usability. It's about being intuitive,
Definitely,
easy to understand, easy to follow, and using the language that you're used to on a day-to-day basis.
definitely. Language is a big one. I think obviously larger companies, so your Marriotts have their terminology, Hilton has their terminology. It all comes to the same thing at the end of the day. The other one is as well is across, so it's not a case of it has to be on a static desktop computer at reception. It could be on a mobile phone. There's a version for mobile phone and there's a version for tablet. So again, it stops a member of staff being stuck at a desk. So you just pull your tablet that's you've just taken the order in the restaurant for. And then you can check somebody in on that tablet. That's what we've done in one of the properties, which is just, and it engages the interest of the guest as well, because they're like that, oh, what are you doing? So it engaged, so you can explain to them, oh, it's a new bit of technology that's been brought out in the past 2 years. We can check you in. We can do everything here for you. I can even send you an email from here.
That's wonderful. And it's easy for your staff. It's easy for your guests. It's not disturbing the flow, and it's allowing your team to be much more flexible on site.
Exactly. And it's doing it when you're doing the flow. So you could be checking the guest in when you're walking them to the bed. It's interesting. There's technology coming out all the time. It's very, very difficult to keep up with it, actually. Very difficult. I think I do LinkedIn Lives and try and do research at least once a week just to see what's coming out. And because it is interesting and it is fascinating. And everybody can say, yes, the pandemic was terrible. But if we hadn't had that, I don't think we would have progressed as quickly as we have. Because a lot of these companies have probably been thinking, oh, yeah, we'll maybe do this in the next 5 years. And they ramped that up and made sure that was there. And they done it in a year. Yes, there's teething problems with it and a lot of education for the guest, especially. But I think as long as you make it fun and make it fun for the guest and for the member of staff in the way that you put it across and how you're doing the training, I don't think there's an issue. If my dad can adapt to using an iPad at 76 years old, anybody can do it.
Excellent. Absolutely. Michael, thank you ever so much. Those insights are incredibly valuable. And as I say, it's very admirable to see the scope and growth of you guys, particularly over the last couple of years since forming. Obviously, effective hospitality management is now going to go from strength to strength. And I wish you guys all the best and look forward to catching up and hearing more in the near future.
That's great, Ryan. Thank you very much.
So that was Michael Jones, the Director of Revenue at Effective Hospitality Management, explained to us how they've had to adapt hospitality management and work much more closely with their staff and utilize technology. Check out more of our episodes on travelmarket.life, where you can find our full series, Hotelier's Voice, of other hoteliers and their experiences adapting and utilizing technologies. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.